Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's fitness programs, and I've been in business since 1994. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the real deal of what really works. No games, no scams, just using science, and most importantly, explain to you why things work, hence the name, The Method to the Madness. All right, today I'm going to yell at you a little bit and say, come on, man, it's all about the calories, dummy. But before I start doing that, let me thank Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 280 five-star reviews on Zillow. And you know what? They are your real estate guys. Even though Lynn is far from a guy, very beautiful young lady, they are the people you want in your corner when you're dealing with real estate, when you're trying to sell or buy. And congratulations to Mr. Gilden, who went out and ran the Daytona Half Marathon on Sunday. Very proud of him. I always believe that when you take care of your body, you take care of everything else. So a little shout out to our sponsor there. All right, so if you guys can remember, some of you, maybe most of you old enough to remember the old political saying, the pundit who said, it's all about the economy, dummy. So that rings true, right, in physical fitness regarding losing body fat. Except it's not about the economy, although in a way it is a balance, but it's a balance of calories. It's all about the calories, dummies. I just have to say that because over and over and over, you're being sold that it's about other things. And you've heard me say this before, so in a way you kind of have to, own some of this yourself. You've heard me say that the diet industry is $1 billion industry, literally nets billions of dollars per year. So that's what they do, and it's their right to do it. They're allowed to make as much money as they want doing this, and we have to be smarter at everything and flex those buyer beware muscles. So when people are in the business to make money off of ignorance, it is up to the ignorant to become more educated, right? So I don't know how long I've been talking about this. Well, probably as long as I've been a personal trainer, which is 30 years. It really all comes back to calories. And, telling people the truth, telling people that it takes hard work, telling people that it's not going to happen overnight, telling people that they're not really going to see a significant difference for a few months. People don't want to hear that because we are in the age of instant gratification. We want instant results, even though we didn't put on that weight instantly. So there's a term called creeping obesity, which plagues this country and other industrialized countries worldwide. And that basically means that people put on around 5 pounds or so per year, per decade. So it just keeps growing and growing. And before you know it, that 170-pound trim college male freshman is now 260 pounds because over the years he's gained 90 pounds. And that whatever female that was very happy with her weight, whatever it might be, is now 30 or 40 pounds heavier because simply creeping obesity took over. And that happens because of the caloric budget. There's nothing more to it. We put on the weight because we started moving less and we started eating more, or at the very least, we didn't slow down our eating and we started moving a lot less. That's what happens. So to lose it, we have to go the other way. We simply have to figure out a way to eat less and move more. ELM, E-L-M-M. Eat less, move more. There is nothing more complicated about it. If you don't believe me, all right, let me give you some education. Let me give you some science on this. So I got the thought to do this podcast because as I was watching the evening news last night while watching dinner, which is dumb in both accounts, right? Probably should not be watching anything when I'm eating and just relax and really taking the time of eating, and definitely shouldn't be watching the news. No good ever comes of really watching it. But I guess I can't say that because I got a podcast idea. They were interviewing, this is local, so this is probably an Orlando guy, some physician. It's funny, he's a surgeon by trade, but then for some reason they're interviewing him on the benefits of intermittent fasting. So he's going on and on to try to explain basically how to do it. So the intermittent fasting people believe that you just consume food for 8 hours and then you don't consume food for the other 16 hours. And in his opinion, it was best to not, or to eat from say 12 p.m. until 8 p.m. and then go on this fast. And he did go on to say that you can change up your hours that you do. And for him, he ate more in the morning time because he did surgery and he wanted to make sure his blood sugar wasn't low. So he went from, I guess, 8 a.m. until what would that be? 4, something like that. So I thought that was kind of funny because I'm like, okay, so because he's this surgeon who clearly doesn't work in, weight loss or has necessarily studied the science of dietetics or exercise physiology, like why are they interviewing him just because he is a surgeon? But in any event, that's what the news and media does. And it sounds better if you interview somebody that's a physician, although that is like rarely the truth when it comes to diet and things like that. I mean, they know it if they've studied it, and they don't if they don't, and they don't necessarily have to study the full realm of it to do what they do. So I found that interesting. But in any event, what he was saying was, it made no sense. And it probably made sense to people listening to it because they don't know better. But what he was talking about, he said, so if you go into a fast, he said, and you've used up your blood sugar, then you're going to start burning more fat. Now, to the average person who hasn't studied all that, that sounds really good. But that is not true. That's not true at all. So the Krebs cycle states that fat burns in a carbohydrate flame. So you can't run out of all your carbohydrates and then expect to burn fat. And secondly, just because your blood sugar is low, it doesn't mean that you have used up all your carbohydrates. That just simply isn't true. We store the majority of our carbohydrates in our body in the form of glycogen. We store 500 grams of calories, 500 grams of carbohydrates. So we have 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. That means we store 2,000 calories worth of carbohydrates in our body in the form of glycogen. We store 400 grams in the muscles, so all the different working muscles, and then an extra reserve 100 grams in the liver. That's a total of 500 grams of carbohydrate. Unless you're on a complete no-carb diet, you never run out of your glycogen. Because when we eat carbohydrates and we don't use all the carbohydrates, we store the rest as glycogen. So we don't store them as fat. And by the way, it's not good to use up all your carbohydrates. But this is about kind of the lunacy of the intermittent fasting, really. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just if you don't understand what you're doing and you don't have to go to such a dramatic extent, then, that's the problem with it. But anyway, not to get off track. And I'm not going to, I could go all day on the idiocy of a low-carb diet, but I'm not going to do that. But the bottom line, it is not good to use up all your carbohydrates. As I already said, fat burns in a carbohydrate flame. So right there, if somebody's telling you to go on a low carb diet, that they don't understand basic physiology, because that's just not how it works. So we store those 500 grams of glycogen in our muscles. when we start moving, we start using carbohydrates. That's what we do. Carbohydrate is our basic form of energy that our muscle and brain cells use. So when activity is first initiated and then sustaining activity, we're using carbohydrates. So the majority of the carbohydrates we use is coming from the glycogen, not from what we're eating at the moment. So it just doesn't work that way. Like there are some simple carbohydrates that we eat, and we might be able to use that for energy in the next 10 or 15 minutes because the glucose is actually broken down a little bit in your salivary glands, so in your mouth. But for the most part, the carbohydrates we use is stored glycogen. So his argument that we start burning fat the longer we fast is just not true. I mean, the glycogen's not going to be gone until we use it up, for one thing. So that doesn't have a whole lot to do with time. That has a lot more to do with activity. So that's false. And then the second part is, again, repeat myself over and over, you can't burn fat without the presence of carbs anyway. So that's false. All right. So the bottom line is, can intermittent fasting work? Like when you do it technically like that? Yes. But it's only because you're tricking yourself psychologically and mentally to eat less during those periods. I mean, most people are grazers. Most people eat when they feel like eating. Most people are mindless eaters. Studies have shown that people consume about 30% more than they think they do, period. So they say, oh, I only eat, 1,000 calories a day. Well, on the average, they're really consuming 1,300 calories a day. So if you double that, that's a lot of food that they mindlessly didn't even consider that they were eating. And a lot of people don't even realize how much they drink, and they think it's for some reason not caloric calories, it blows my mind that people don't understand that. So the intermittent fasting is just simply taking away a window of time that you may eat, which is fine. If that's what it takes, go for it. But there is nothing in the scientific literature that states that it's any better than any other caloric restriction diet. And yes, we do have to restrict calories if we want to lose weight. The other thing that this guy went on to say, and I wanted to jump through the TV and strangle him, was that, and you can eat whatever you want during this time period. Okay, that's not true. You can go intermittent fasting all you want to. And if you eat nothing but junk and shit that has a ton of calories in it during that time period, and you've exceeded your caloric balance for the day, you're going to gain fat. Now, the reason why, again, it has shown to work in some instances is because people simply eat less. Let's say somebody's on that earlier regime of, say, like 10 to 2. I've heard of that one before. A professional surfer did that one. Well, like most people do their really bad eating after 4 o'clock, right? So if you've cut your food off early in the day like that, it's just taking away that opportunity of going back to the fridge and getting another piece of cold pizza, or going to the freezer at 7:30 and eating a pint of ice cream. Like, it simply has taken away that time. Or it's taken away the, couple extra glasses of wine you had after dinner, because technically you didn't eat dinner. You ate this kind of meal around 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. So it's just simply taken away the opportunity where people have grazed and gone back for bad foods, because psychology says that that's when people want to go do it, because they're bored or they're trying to eat something to put themselves to sleep. So most of these things, again, come from like psychological distress versus anything else. But it is a little maddening, because sometimes I want people to be like, why are you so dumb? Like, why don't you get that there are ways to eat less without going to the extremes? Like, why don't you find like a little more moderation? I mean, I talk about it in my book, I have the different rules. And this is by no means, an opportunity to try to sell more books, because if you know anything about self-publishing, you kind of lose more than you make. It's more, I write these because I want to be able to have an extended business card so people can really know what they're supposed to do, and I can hand it to them and they can take their time to read it. But one of the rules I talk about is don't eat after dinner. Like if you just ate your dinner, didn't eat a dessert, because I also believe in that when you're trying to lose weight, just restrict yourself. You're going to live if you don't have your little dessert. Trust me. You're going to feel a million times better as you start to lose weight than that little treat you're going to have after dinner is going to make you feel for all of 10 minutes. Just you can handle it for a little bit of time. We're not asking that much. And then you don't eat after that, and then you wake up. That's kind of a fast anyway. Like that's why they call it break breakfast, break the fast. So when you get up, you haven't eaten for whatever, 8, 9, 10 hours, maybe longer than that. If you sleep for 8 and you don't eat for 2 hours before you go to bed, that's a 10-hour fast anyway. People, come on, this isn't rocket science. Like that's a fast anyway. So why are you still falling for these things and think it's the new panacea of the way to do it? It's frustrating. When we sit in our classes back when I was in graduate school, you're the people we talk about. You're the people that are like, oh God, yep, so-and-so, yeah, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, yep. They're going to be the first person to fall for that little dumb trick, It's ridiculous. I know it's hard. I know weight loss is one of the hardest things people can do. There's an emotional component to eating. There's genetics involved. There's exercise. There's activity. There's learning how to mindfully eat. There's tracking it. There's food budgets. There's a lot involved. I get it. I'm not picking on that part. I'm picking on the part that people are so silly that they fall for these things over and over. You're the same people that did the same thing 20 years ago when you were told it's all about eating 5 to 6 square meals a day. So eating frequently and spreading it out. Hello? That's the polar opposite of intermittent fasting, which says eat more food in a shorter period of time. You're the same people. It's the polar opposite of meal strategies, right? It's the polar opposite, and you're the same people that believed them when they told you that 20 years ago, and now they realize they ate that up all they could, no pun intended, and now they're switching it to something else. Come on, get smarter. This isn't rocket science. If you want to lose weight, you have to figure out a way to eat less, a way that works for you. That is all there is to it. And a lot of times, yes, you have to give up certain foods, not because they're evil, but because they're very calorically dense. So if you need to eat less to lose weight, for most people, yes, that is going to be around 1,000 to 1,300 calories a day or something like that. But you put yourself in that situation when you gain the weight. So yes, that is restrictive eating for most people. I say most people because people who are a lot bigger than that can consume a little bit more, because the more you weigh, your faster metabolism is and all that. So most people need to lose 20 or 30 pounds. So most people are going to be around that ballpark, give or take a couple hundred calories. So that isn't a lot of food. So if you do drink that, glass of wine, you're talking another 140 calories on top of what you're eating. So that's very calorically dense. You probably can't have your peanut butter and jelly sandwiches anymore because 1 tablespoon of peanut butter has 90 calories. Most people don't eat 1 tablespoon of peanut butter. They get out that big old mixing spoon thing and spread peanut butter on the bread. It's closer to like at least 2 tablespoons, which is 200 calories or 190 calories of fat, basically. So there will be foods you have to give up. If you went to Chipotle and got their regular healthy burrito of chicken, black beans, and rice with nothing else, you just consumed 1,000 calories right there. You just consumed it. So it is going to take discipline to eat less, but it is worth it. And most importantly, It's the truth. So if you want to know the truth, keep listening. If you want to be fooled, then keep buying into these silly diet programs that these charlatans are going to be selling you. It's just all nonsense. It is just not true. The beauty of it is, if you listen to the truth and you do it the right way, you sacrifice, you eat less, you lose a couple pounds a week, which is nice and slow. You work out at the gym and you gain muscle and you work on your cardiovascular exercise. So you're improving your mobility, you're improving your heart health. In 6 months, you're going to feel a million times better. But you are going to have to discipline yourself to do all the right things for these 6 months. There's no other way around it. All right. So remember my little acronym today, ELM, eat less, move more. And remember, it's about the calories, dummy. Let that stick. Okay. And by the way, I've fallen for many things. So I'm calling myself a dummy too. We all fall for things, but let's be better. Let's try to do better. Speaking of being better, there is none better than Overhead Door of Daytona Beach. They are the best garage door company in the area, in the state. And we're lucky to have one here in Daytona, owned by Jeff Hawk and his son, Zach Hawk. They're the best. If you need help, give them a shout at overheaddordaytona.com.